The primary stakeholders in this case are McDonald's, which is the main company that was put pressure on to change the way they do business and to change their product. Another stakeholder is the Environmental Defense Fund, which was they spearheaded the attack on McDonald's, and they initially brought up the claims that polyester was not environmentally safe, as well as the Pro-Environmental Packaging Council, which was funded by paper companies, and these were the people that stood to make a large profit if McDonald's caved and changed their business.
When we're examining the ethical issues, we need to find out where these things went wrong. Now, the Pro-Environmental Packaging Council was funded by paper companies. This presents an ethical issue because when the paper companies have something to gain, it creates some sort of conflict of interest. Now, obviously, the Pro-Environmental Packaging Council can't make a fair and unbiased decision when they're being funded by those who have something to gain from this. The paper companies abuse the public opinion. They use children as pawns in their pursuit of profit. They do not give the children full information about the environmental issues in the polystyrene. Instead, all they wanted the children to do was influence the public opinion and convince McDonald's to ditch this polystyrene so they could make more money. Neither McDonald's nor the paper companies cared about the environment. Instead, all they cared about was dollars and cents. McDonald's, all they wanted was to make the money. Because they were threatened with a boycott, they changed to the paper products because they didn't want to lose the money from the boycott. Now, the paper companies didn't really care about the environment either. We'll prove later that the polystyrene is just as environmental, if not more, than the paper products.
The environmental issues are, first of all, using paper requires more energy, it emits more pollution, and that means cutting down more trees. Whereas if we were to use polystyrene, it's going to be 30% less energy to make, 40% less air pollution, and 42% less water pollution. Also, the Stanford Research Institute did a study, and they found that there was no sound basis for claiming that using paper products was superior to using polystyrene products. Also, in the landfills, nothing would change because the paper and polystyrene both add up to one third of 1 total percent of the landfills.
And also, you want to make sure you consider the effects that it will have on the community. For instance, when the Pro-Environmental Packaging Company did its research, it came to the conclusion that and used children to make the public think that there would be less environmental issues when you use paper. But in actuality, the paper is just environmentally safe as the polystyrene, according to the Stanford Research Institute. Edward H. Rennies, McDonald's U.S. head of U.S. operations, said that in a quote that he was Edward H. Rennies, McDonald's head of U.S. operations, told everyone that although there's no evidence to support the fact that the environmental will be heavily affected, the people just won't buy it, meaning that the Pro-Environmental Packaging Company simply just made the public think that it was completely unsafe to use polystyrene, when in actuality there's no statistical evidence to support the claim that the environment's going to be heavily affected by it. So now they've lost the ability to make that product. And also, you want to make sure that the actual product is paper versus polystyrene. Which one's the better product? Polystyrene is lightweight, it keeps the hamburgers warm, and it doesn't absorb the grease, unlike the paper company. But the paper companies made it seem that using polystyrene will emit less, but will take less time to biodegrade and emit more toxic fumes. But Stanford Research Institute, as we stated earlier, concluded that there's no statistical evidence to support that claim.
There is no denying that both McDonald's and the paper companies made serious ethical decisions. And both of them were wrong. But we have to evaluate which decisions were the most wrong. Now, the paper companies exhibited extremely poor ethics by using children in their campaign. They didn't really care about the environment. Now, McDonald's, all they did was simply react to public opinion. They wanted to make a profit, and this boycott forced them into switching to the paper products. There is nothing unethical about wanting to make a profit. All they wanted to do was keep their constituency and their customer base. Now, all parties tried to hide behind the premise of going green. They all wanted to seem like they were being environmentally friendly, but not all actually were environmentally friendly. Really, what they all were just doing was hiding behind this to try to convince the public that their decisions were right. I don't think they should have changed. All the evidence showed that how the polystyrene used less energy, had less air pollution, less water pollution. Everything points to the fact that all McDonald's was doing was just, trying to make money, and really the polystyrene was the better product.
Yeah. So McDonald's made a good business decision.
McDonald's made a good business decision, but not so much.
It was because they were being completely targeted by the other companies, saying that they need to use paper products, when in reality, all these other fast food chains do use the same kind of polystyrene, but in reality, McDonald's is the one who's being targeted for it, and they didn't want to lose business, so they went with the paper.
So did they breach their own ethics based on what their mission was?
They breached their own ethics when they went on to say that they were helping the environment by switching, because they knew for a fact that they weren't. Business-wise, like we said, they made the right call, but because they supported their decision by saying we're helping the environment by doing this, I don't think that they stuck to their ethical values.
What would you, if you were collectively running McDonald's and you had a group that perhaps unethically was putting this pressure on you and it convinced the public that you were polluting the environment and you knew you weren't, what do you do?
I think it's really important for McDonald's, since they are so globally known, to have put out maybe advertisements or more media claiming that what they were doing was actually correct, instead of letting this company attack them and then get children involved and not giving them the whole issue by saying that they were going to try and get recycling. They're already in the process of getting these 7 recycling sites set up, and that they were going to do something about it, and actually in reality it would have been better if they would have just gotten the word out.
So did you answer his question? You guys would have gone on a different campaign if you were in charge of
Yeah, I think if I was, that's what I would have done.
I think get the word out there.
Yeah, I would have used a Stanford Research Institute as backing, since they proved that there would be no real superior difference between using paper and polystyrene. These are credible research.
Just let me pass this around. Miss any of the pearls of wisdom?
You obviously have just a short set of facts in front of you. In your deliberations, were you finding that you wish you had a little bit more information? And if so, what kinds of facts would have helped you determine some of these ethical questions?
I think if we had a little bit more background on what polystyrene actually was, and the information that they gave us is basically, I guess, what we showed you as McDonald's chose polystyrene because it was more lightweight and it didn't absorb the grease and it kept their hamburgers warm. I think if we had more background on the decision making that they had to make that initially, because obviously they had paper at their disposal before that anyways.
And also, I think it would have been important to know the packet mentions that the paper doesn't release as much poisonous fumes into the atmosphere, but it doesn't really elaborate on what the conclusions were that they found, whether or not the polystyrene does or does not. I think that would have been useful for the also. Anything else?
Did you have any information with regards to whether there's polystyrene in the paper itself?
No.
They described the alternative product as a paperboard product. A wax-coated paperboard. So it would obviously benefit the paper companies because it was paper, but we don't know if it did the job as well as the polystyrene would have.
Is there any sense of a cost benefit in whole scheme of the product as to was the paper less expensive? Was it more beneficial to stay with polystyrene?
That was one of the things we were trying to figure out. Is it said that it cost 30% less energy to make the polystyrene, but it didn't really say how much that would transfer into profits or revenue and whatnot.
So we really don't know.
Yeah, it's kind of like we didn't want to like assume,
We also looked at it as the way that they, profit-wise, McDonald's didn't lose profit because they acted in order to avoid a boycott that the Children's Crusade threatened to do with their Send It Back campaign. So when we were looking at their overall profit, they acted to save money, but we don't know if they actually did.
Do we have information about what education campaign costs?
No.
Forbes magazine wrote the Children's Crusade, which was the article in the paper that promoted the kids to write letters and boycott the product of McDonald's was making.
I'm wondering how you differentiate between responding to this criticism, just a reaction to public opinion to maintain profitability versus customer service. I'm assuming that customer service is one of their values for McDonald's as well, and how you could sort of sift through and weigh whether the action was truly in the best interest of their customers or sheerly for their own profit motives.
Well, like I said, Edward H. Bernice, the U.S. McDonald's U.S. Head, he said that even though there's proof of the fact that the polystyrene is environmentally sound, the customers just won't buy it because of the opinion poller set out by the pro-environmental packaging company. So, I mean, it was hard for them to sell the actual product once they got that data out.
So unlike the Cape Wind project earlier this morning, the minority now has caused them to...
Yeah, exactly.
Do you think McDonald's really did a complete evaluation of environmental impact, or did they just basically fold or react to the lobbyists and you hit it right on the head? I think the lobbyists certainly had their own profit motives, and they weren't necessarily looking for the best environmental solution. But did McDonald's do enough research, or did they just not communicate?
I really don't think McDonald's did a whole lot of research on the environmental side. I think all they were looking at is that if they don't follow through with changing to the paperboard, then they're set to lose a lot of money because of this boycott. And really, they were just listening to the public opinion, and what the public wanted was the paperboard.
Yeah. And also,
so they reacted to the pressure.
Well, yeah, because I mean, they were going to target the kids, and then McDonald's main consumer is mostly children because of the Happy Meals and whatnot. So when they heard that they're in mass boycott by children, they were probably very scared that they were going to lose a lot of profits, and so they immediately switched back.
Also, beforehand, when McDonald's initially had the polystyrene, they were about to, in 1990, it said that they were about to push through $16 million to develop recycling plants for the polystyrene. So at the time, they were ready to accept responsibility for the environmental effects and take steps to alter it. But because the public, I guess, wasn't as well-rounded or wasn't as educated as wholly as they had intended, they took steps instead to counteract the immediate effects of their business instead of the long term.
So could they have done a better job communicating?
I think if they had put more education out there, yes, but I think that they were kind of facing an uphill battle with educating the kids that were already being told, like, McDonald's doesn't recycle, McDonald's doesn't use these products they're using products that are going to harm the environment, and so they were already on the downward edge of a child's, one opinion.
No, you did a great job.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
guys.